You're very, very welcome, Paul. I'd just like to introduce you for our listeners, and then we can get into what's, I think, going to be very, very interesting conversation on a very historic day, and we'll work out why it's so historic in a minute.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
Paul Oakley Stovall is a critically acclaimed writer, actor, and director based in Chicago. He currently plays George Washington in the national tour of Hamilton. His short films are award winning, and his own play, Immediate Family, has been directed by Emmy nominee Felicia Rashad. Paul's album, Ghettos and Oceans, with his band Into the Green, was produced by Grammy winning producer Steve Rodby. And he's worked for the Obamas during the Obama administration and has worked with then Vice President Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton. So there's lots of different worlds coming into play, and we're going to delve into those today. And he is currently creating a brand new work entitled Clear, which he's workshopping as part of the Artist in Residence here at the Irish Institute of Music and Song. So maybe you can fill us in. Firstly, tell us why it's a historic day today, the 20th of January, 2021.
Well, this is our inauguration day every 4 years in our country, and this is a particularly special one because we are ridding ourselves of toxins today, major toxins.
So immediately after this call, you're gonna jump on and see what's
Yeah,
happening. Hopefully
yeah,
everything's going well and that the celebrations are well in flow.
yeah. And I worked on two inaugurations in 2009 and 2013. So I know what goes into it. Of course, it was a little different this year because of the pandemic, but I've been texting a lot with all my buddies who are working on this one, um, is on the different scale that it has to be on. So it's a thrilling day. We won't have all the inaugural balls that we usually have in the evening, but yeah, I can't wait to see what
And
beautiful
so,
work they've
what
done.
kind of thing were you doing for the Obama administration for those inaugurations? What type of work were you doing on the ground?
For the inaugurations, there's a committee called PIC, the Presidential Inauguration Committee. So after the election happens, they move you all to DC, and it's almost like the band breaks up and comes back together in a new way. So my job was the day of service. So I was organizing the volunteer day the day before the inauguration. So on inauguration day, then I would just kind of be anybody's all hands on deck helping out as an assistant. But I was in charge of whatever volunteer service thing that the president elect chose to do for inauguration.
Fascinating. So, I mean, some of our
Yeah.
listeners might be asking themselves, "So, hold on a minute, is this guy in Hamilton, or is he working in politics, or what's happening?" So, I know that we're going to get into your story about how you came into music and the school of jazz clubs you said you went to, just playing, just
Yeah.
gigging as much as you could, and that's where it brought you in. So, maybe we'll start with Hamilton, and maybe you can fill us in on how did you
Okay.
get there? What took you into Hamilton?
I had really left the business. I had made a concerted effort to, back in 2008, you know, um, Obama was running and everyone was saying a lot online, but I noticed that a lot of artists were doing a lot of talking and not a lot of doing. And I just Okay, and to be fair, my career wasn't exactly blazing hot at the moment, so it was easy for me to walk away from nothing. So that was easy enough to do. But I decided to put my money where my mouth was and stop talking online about what needs to happen and try to get involved in some way. Uh, you just continue to say yes to life and work hard, and things fell into place. And next thing I know, I was moving up pretty quickly within the organization on the advanced teams, and I was doing media logistics. I think maybe because I brought an artistic vision and an artist energy to a job that was seen by most people as putting up folding chairs and making sure the teleprompter was working and hang that flag right there and do that. I saw it as something that could be more fun, and that we were working with these two incredibly photogenic candidates in Mr. Obama and Mrs. Obama. So I didn't have the filter or the understanding. I was very naive, and I would just suggest things and say things. And I think even if I wasn't always suggesting something that would work, I think the energy I brought to it was intoxicating to some people who were used to a job that wasn't so fun, so to speak. And next thing I know, I was traveling the world and setting up events all over the world. Good times.
Nice one. And
Nice one.
we'll talk a little bit about that experience and actually
Okay.
the show that you're workshopping. We'll get there, because there's a lot of different things in that, and it sort of brings in your own story and
Right.
your life experience into that. But I suppose what a lot of people will be wondering is how does someone get into a show like Hamilton, and what type of person does it take to get there? As in, when people think of Broadway, they think of these huge shows. They think maybe of like an archetype of this kind of all singing, all dancing, hard worker, cutthroat, ruthless, sweat. You can see the beads of sweat on their head. But that's not everybody who's there.
That's not everybody. It certainly wasn't my story. As I said, I had checked out, and uh, when the Obamas were done, and I worked on Bernie Sanders' campaign, and then that was done. I didn't work on it in 2020. I did his first one in 2016. So I was settling back into Chicago and New York, and Felicia Rashad had directed my play in a few big theaters around the country. So I was kind of like, okay, we got to figure out what am I going to do now? And I was working on this musical. So I decided writing is going to be my thing. And Felicia asked me to assistant direct her when she was directing a new play on off Broadway. So I found myself in New York, and the casting people from Hamilton, I ran into them at an opening night party. And the producer of Hamilton also produced Rent, which I was in years ago. So there was a somewhat familial connection from way back. And they asked me at this opening night party, what are you doing in town? We thought you left. And they just left it at that. And the next day, my agent in Chicago called me and said, they want to see you. So prepare this material. And I just sort of got back on the horse. I never thought, and then, I'd heard of Hamilton, but I thought they were all 20-year-olds. And, I just didn't think, even though I knew there was this role, George Washington, I just thought it was a little too hip for me. But I fell in, and I just brought myself to it. So it's true what you say. Not everybody's path is, the person who gets on a bus with $200 and a suitcase and a dream and takes every dance class and there's different paths to get to it. But I think what it takes to be in Hamilton, was your original question, is discipline. We've come from different ways, most of us, to get there, but one thing we all have in common is discipline.
And you talked about how at one point, you kind of not given up, but put aside the acting, putting aside the singing, all that type of stuff. Did you ever think, if you were to look back and ask the Paul of then, whatever year it was, could that Paul ever see himself being one of the leading people in one of the biggest musicals currently in the world? Like, what would that Paul have said? Like, where he was at that time before you kind of just moved into theater work? What would he have said?
He'd have said, "What are you smoking?" I would have said to myself, "What are you smoking?" It was the furthest thing from my mind. I do not exaggerate. It was the furthest thing from my mind. Even when Hamilton came out, like I said, Mrs. Obama was obsessed with it, and she went to see it, and I saw it all happening. And even then, if somebody would have said, it's all people of color, there's these roles you could possibly be in it someday, I still would have said, "What are you smoking?" Because I had kind of fallen out of the rhythm.
And it's interesting saying that, because a lot of artists, there was a government official here who got in a lot of trouble when the pandemic came, because she made a comment saying that artists need to retrain. They need to, now forget about the art, and they need to go find other jobs to do and upskill. And she got a lot of backlash for it. But in many ways, that was probably something that helped informed all your decisions, because really, like, at heart, you're a writer. And if anyone gets to know you personally, it's been great to have you here at the Institute. You can see how much you care about the things you do, the stories, the characters, the meaning behind them, that it's in your soul. Every bit of you, like, it lives that when you get to chatting to you.
I feel like there is no such thing as make-believe. I feel like the fusing of the world that you cannot see with the world that you are in, one is not imaginary. You just can't see it with your plain eye. with the naked eye, but that your imagination is, and it's funny being here. Donald was telling me a story of, what is the creature called, Donald? The sea people who,
The Selkie.
the Selkie,
yeah.
and how they're in these two worlds, and when finally given the chance to go back, she didn't even hesitate. And so this idea that these other worlds exist, or that a white bull could come along and bow to someone and shoot them off into the horizon, and that turns out to be Zeus, you know, nobody can really, you can make it up, but there is truth in it. There's truth in it. And I feel like I look at what's happening to me now and I say, oh, so my path to Hamilton was circuitous, but I was always on that path. And in fact, I was getting the type of training I actually needed, which was to witness a president and be in the presence of a president, and someone who felt like a first president. You know, George Washington was the first president and Barack Obama was the 44th, but he felt like a first in many ways. And so I got to witness that. And so when the time came, you know, everybody in that casting room, they knew what I had been doing for the past 7 to 8 years. And they knew what I could just bring to the part. I hope, I think. Because it certainly wasn't my great singing, Michael.
We've been chatting about this. Myself and Paul have been chatting about this. Paul's an absolutely beautiful singer. And here at the Institute, we've been doing some writing at the moment. But when Paul sings in the writing we're doing, this is working on some stuff and listening to his new musical Clear and exploring other new songs. Paul sings in this like jazzy, soul-y way, and we were discussing different ways of singing. But obviously when he sings in George Washington, he sings in a different way, and it's absolutely amazing. It really, really is incredible. When we were discussing beforehand this, you know, what it means to be a singer and intentionality, and being able to actually, we did talk about this in the previous podcast with Nikhil as well, didn't we? Focusing on the effect as opposed to the technique to get there, focusing on the emotional side and the story. And it is fascinating to see, you know, you don't have, people think that you have to be the best dancer and the best actor and the best singer, all of these things. But really, I think for the listeners out there, to hear someone like you, Paul, who is an unbelievable singer, but to hear you even consider and even say that you even suggest that you're not a good singer or not the best singer, I think other people would hear you and be like, what is this guy smoking?
No, yeah,
you know?
What is he smoking? I will say that being in Hamilton, I came at it. I mean, even in the final audition, what they kind of do is try and wear you down. Especially if you're reading for a principal. So I was there for 7 hours that last day, and I was going, and they'd give me some notes and send me out of the room. Actually, it was the second to last audition. I actually had to do one more after that. But this was the one where they wanted to see, can we break him? Now, they couldn't break me emotionally because I thought I would never have a chance in hell of getting it. So I was so relaxed that it wasn't going to break me. But there did come a time where on the big number, One Last Time, at the very end, I was starting to go into habits from when you in a club and you have a microphone in your hand and you're doing this and you're stretching out, you know. And the music director, Alec Lackamore, said to me, "Hey, Paul, would you be okay if we took that down a half step?" And I knew in that moment that I was going to get the part because they were making concessions to what I could do. And but my defensive self came up and my pride came up, and I said, no. With enough work, I can, you know, I just haven't been singing in a while, and blah, blah, blah. I started explaining myself, and he was like, shh. I think you are a baritone, and I think that it would sound better in your voice. That's all I'm saying. And he got up from the table, and of course, since he knows it so well, he's like Michael, you know, he just played it down in a different key, and I sang it. Ooh, it felt so good. And he goes, "Yeah, that feels good, doesn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." And the thought went through my head that they would have to change the whole song for me, like in the orchestra, if they did this. So they did it. So a lot of people don't know that I sing One Last Time. I think I sing it a whole step down than what all the other George Washingtons sing.
Brilliant. And sorry, Don, you about to say something there? No, go on.
Yeah, no, it's because we've been talking about this a lot, and it keeps coming up because we're doing a lot of schools outreach workshops. So Paul and Nikhil Saboo, the other artist in residence at the minute, they've been talking to a lot of school kids, a lot of TY students, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, all across Ireland, and this question about, like, you know, where did you get your training? How did you end up in, you know, do at this level? And something you've been talking about is your kind of experience of cutting your teeth on stage in smoky clubs, and I'd love to know
back when you could smoke inside clubs.
Yeah, how different is it when you're playing George Washington compared with how when you were on stage with the national tour of Rent, compared with when you were just, you know, a few people in a bar? You know, what's the difference?
It's complete lunacy. You know, let's be real. You know, when I'm singing in a blues club or a jazz club, oftentimes either I'm sitting in with somebody, with a trio or something, and you know, there's much more movement and connection with the musicians. You know, and you're singing in a much more. And now that I think about it, I'm going to stop saying that it's not a healthy place, because I'm singing from a very emotional place, and I'm singing out the top of my head and my elbow or my knee or wherever I'm feeling. I can get much more emotionally connected because I can move my body any way that I want to. Mm-hmm. When you're doing a role, you have to cross here and stand there, and then cross over here and stand there, and then look at that person and say that. But I think that singing in jazz clubs and blues clubs, it prepared me. It keeps my energy very improvisational, even when I'm doing the same material. And it keeps me alive in every moment. And I don't, you know, you're not allowed in Hamilton to just start riffing and running how you want. But I have that sensation of it being alive, because where I cut my teeth is there's a lady over there talking while I'm singing. There's someone over here clinking their glass really loud, and I have to stay focused. So I have a very strong foundation in focusing on what I'm doing, singing from the heart. And I just happen to have on these 1783 clothes, and you know, I'm saying these words.
It's so nice to hear you say that, because I think a lot of performers, once you get to a certain level, and usually it's like you finish college, maybe a lot of people feel like they're ready to do stuff, and they might turn down gigs that they might think aren't good enough for them, or they might turn down, you know, the pub gig that might pay them $100 for 5 hours work. But actually, it's those gigs when you have the freedom to explore in a safe environment, really, because the audience is going to love it no matter what, that actually helps you form your chops. I know yeah. For me, Dónal, and I think probably similar to you, when we got to travel with Nuna, it was like that, because it was the same gig every night. It was getting comfortable on stage. All of a sudden, stepping in front of a stage, you've done it so many times, it becomes familiar, and that freedom, like. Yeah, for any performers listening, just young performers getting out there and just performing.
Yeah, don't ever turn down a gig. What's wrong with you? It might be your last one, you know. Hey.
That's true. That is very, very true.
You know, look at what we've all had to do for the past year. So yeah, don't turn down work, because there's something in there to learn always.
Yeah, and a lot of artists over the last year have, in many ways, had to reinvent themselves. Sure. Or go back to school, you know, just go back to basics, whether it's on the technical side, or do gigs that are on, you know, completely different gigs to what they were doing before, become different types of performers. I mean, your story has so many different elements to it, that you have this vast range of skill and vast range of experience, which I suppose, like you're saying, when you get in that room, you know that you've got whatever it is, that you're not so nervous, you're not riding on this one thing. And I think that was some of the feedback, or the sort of advice that you guys were given to the kids, is it was an interesting one. You should focus on building, continuing to grow beyond your career, you know. So if you want to be in musical theater, yeah, work hard and get there, but don't put everything in, because that's not going to serve you well. It's not going
But
to.
that doesn't serve you well in anything in life, to put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put it all in your children. Don't put it all in your relationship. That's just not, anything can go wrong where that thing is not the way you wanted it to be. And then what are you going to do? So you need to just be well-rounded. Go play tennis, go ride your bike, go read a book, go take up cooking, as Nikhil loves to cook. You have to, and all those things make you a better performer.
And you were a tennis player, Paul.
I still am.
Those big long arms.
At one stage, you were considering it, weren't you? You wanted to pursue
13, 14, 15, 16. I got to high school and I realized that I probably would end up being more of a doubles specialist because I didn't have the court coverage that I think you need.
So what height are you, Paul?
I'm 6'5".
6'5".
And back then, there were no tennis players 6'5". So that's why, nowadays they're all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". And the different cross-training things that they have, that's the tennis body now. But back then, I didn't have the speed that, most tennis players were 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", and they were moving quickly around the court, and you had to cover the whole court by yourself. But in doubles, with my partner serving and I'm at the net, very intimidating.
I'd love to talk about, we actually haven't talked about your album, Ghettos and Oceans, and I suppose this brings you from your singing and the sort of stage career as a performer into your writing. So maybe tell us a little bit about Into the Green and just that experience of working on stuff as a band.
Everything that I've written, or every thing that has launched me into writing, has been because somebody told me I couldn't. And I don't know if that's the healthiest place to start. I think that I've gotten to a very healthy place with it now where I'm proactively writing things that interest me. But when I started Into the Green, it was because I wanted to be in a different band, and I was not seen as, to these people's eye, someone who could be in a rock band and be the front person of a rock band. And I said, well, I think I can. And they were like, well, then go write your own thing. And that's all they had to say to me. So I ran into my friend Ann Harris, and she said, I have a friend Steve who plays piano. I think you two would get along. Why don't I just connect you two for an afternoon? It's funny, Dónal, you look a lot like him. And when I show him a screenshot of this, he's going to think that I've started a new band with his twin. And so she got us together for an afternoon, and we wrote 3 songs in one afternoon. So I was scribbling along. You know, when you're writing, if you don't already have the idea, you can make some stuff up, and then you just sort of pause and get an idea, right? So we had 3 songs down, and then we said, I think we've got something here. I pulled my former college roommate, who was a female sax player. This other guy I used to hang out with played congas. We just pieced it together. Ann's husband played drums. It wasn't his passion, but he did it. So it was a funky kind of thrown together thing, but we became kind of a thing on the scene in Chicago. And then Steve Rodby, who's the bass player for Pat Metheny Group, he lives in Chicago, and he happened to see us one night in a club. He was just out with his friends, and there we were. And he came up to us and said, it's very raw, but I want to produce you and pull it together and help you be what I can see that you can be. And then we were having like the drummer from Rush was drumming for us, and it was great.
And not only are you into writing songs, but you're also into writing for screen. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience in LA and the shows you worked on, and maybe even how you got there?
Ooh, how I got to LA is a bit of a horror story. So let's just say there was a bad breakup and I ended up in LA.
I'd say that's a many people's stories.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I did it in such an impulsive way. The Obama time had ended, the Bernie time had ended. I was kind of in between things, and I was in a kind of vulnerable place already. And it's like I said earlier, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because that thing fell apart. And I kind of just reactively called my friend in LA and said, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow and I'm coming there. I don't even know what I was thinking. I had no plan. And I went to LA, And a friend of mine saw on Facebook that I was in LA from how it says where you are.
Mm.
And she said, "Oh, my brother is the showrunner on this TV show on Stars Network, and they're looking for one more writer because one of the writers got pulled over to Blackish, this show on another network." And I said, "Oh, okay." She said, "So you're in LA, right? You are actually here." I said, "Yeah. How long are you going to be here?" I have no idea. I didn't want to tell her kind of what was going on with me. I was at his house later that afternoon, and I was hired that day. So from this bad breakup, and I just made this crazy decision. The next day, I was hired on a TV show.
But that's why people go to LA, isn't it? That's exactly why
But
people just say, I'm going to LA.
but it wasn't why I went, but I'll take it. I took it, you know. They pay
That's
you
one
And
of
then
the
you
good.
ended up
success
doing
stories.
you ended up doing some on-screen work, and you were in Empire and Shameless and a few other shows. Is that like, did you have an agent as an actor, or how did that come about?
Yeah, but my agent is for acting is back in Chicago. So the Shameless is actually shot in Chicago. I don't know. A lot of people don't know that. It's
Mm.
and so is Empire. So a lot of that stuff was when I came back or right before I left. You can do little guest spots to supplement your theater career because in Chicago it's hard to make your living just on theater.
Mm.
You can work constantly, but you might not make enough where you can, you know, do shopping sprees and things like that. You know, you can make enough to pay your rent, but if you want to have that little extra and do things, you got to supplement. So luckily, the television community has come to Chicago. There's a whole TV studio that's been built. So a lot of shows shoot there now. A lot of Amazon Prime shows shoot there now.
Mm.
Like Chicago is like the secret that's always been there that's now been discovered. We're a huge city. You can make it look like New York. You can get a lot of tax incentives. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
And Chicago, really, in America, you've got, in terms of theater and performance, it really is New York, Chicago, and LA. And maybe is Atlanta coming up, or?
For theater, it's just New York and Chicago if you want to make a living.
Mm.
Even places like Atlanta and LA, they'll fly us in to play the lead roles.
Wow.
I mean, even in Chicago, they'll bring people in from New York sometimes. So it goes New York, Chicago for theater. TV and film, of course, LA, New York, and then Chicago. But Atlanta for TV and film is maybe even number 2 now.
Mm. And like, you've been doing so much touring with these shows, and you probably know the theater landscape of the States like the back of your hand at this point.
Yep.
But your own show has done really well. Immediate Family, and that was Felicia Rashad was working on that, directing it. So big name to get involved, and obviously the audiences responded really well. So what was the story with that show, and how did you end up getting it produced?
I was a member of a theater company, a small company in Chicago, and we were having a winter festival of new plays where all the company members were supposed to contribute new work. I had recently done a big hit musical at the big theater downtown, and so people were putting me in that box, and it was a jazz musical, so they plucked me out, and I'd done this big role with some big New York Tony Award winners, and the artistic director of the theater said, "Oh no, Paul, you're not a writer. So what we want you to do is host the evening and sing some songs in between each presentation of the writers." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what?" And he said, "Well, you're not a writer." And I said, "I'll have you know that I have written a play." And I was lying. I had never written a play. There was no play. And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have a play? Well, then we'd love to have your play. Can I look at it tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll give it to you. Let me have 2 days. I got to clean it up. It's just kind of a mess." So in 2 days, I wrote this play.
What? No way.
And I didn't really have a choice because I painted myself into a corner. So I based it loosely on my real life. I think any writer, though, as I've discovered, you better be alive in every character.
Mm.
You cannot just make something up like that. So anyway, I wrote this play in a day and a half, 2 days, and we did one scene from it. And the board members and the investors were all loving it. And he came up to me and he said, "Oh no, wait, let me reverse it. I wrote one scene because that's all you had to present." And then when they reacted well to that, he said, "This is great. Can I see the whole play?" And that's when I said, "Give me 2 days." And I wrote the whole play. And then over the years, it got produced in smaller theaters in San Diego and a small theater in LA before Felicia got it and took it to a big theater. But now it's been done all over the country. It just got picked up in Memphis.
Hey.
Nice
Yeah,
one.
just the other day. I got to turn off my that notification thing. Did you guys hear that?
No, it's you.
Nope. All good.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Okay.
so I mean, like you're in Ireland now, and it sounds like, for our listeners, like you've done it all. You've done so many different things, but everything is moving in a particular direction,
Mhm.
and I suppose people would be wondering, well, why is he in Ireland? Why here, and what the hell is he doing at the Irish Institute of Music and Song? Why, um, what took you here? And then maybe we can explain a little bit about all the different things that we've been working on. So
Okay.
firstly, what took you to Ireland?
Okay. I was doing a playwriting mentorship for a small African American theater company in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was online because the pandemic was in full flow. And one of the other mentors is a woman who lives in Ireland. So she was getting into the Zooms from Ireland, like late night over there while we were at midday in the States. And she wrote me on the side and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but Frederick Douglass came to Ireland back in the mid 1800s. And he spent some time here. And I think it'd be an interesting story, something that you might be interested in. Maybe we could work on it." And I thought to myself, yeah, I think I'm going to come to Ireland. And she got me in touch with the embassy in Chicago because she knew someone there who was a fan of Hamilton. So this lady was really excited to help me. And she got me in touch with the cultural attache in DC to Ireland, Ragnar Almqvist. And it was all going. I literally, guys, all I was going to do is come here, look around, try and get the feel. I had the Hamilton, savings, and we weren't doing the show, so it was also kind of a let me get out of the States and just go be somewhere else. And then this guy from the attache's office got me in touch with Caroline. I can't pronounce her last name, but I know you know how to pronounce it, Donald. Schechter.
Yeah, exactly. Caroline Schechter from the
Schechter. Okay.
University College
Yeah.
Cork, UCC.
He got me in touch with her. He got me in touch with all these other scholars about Frederick Douglass. And suddenly I had this cadre of people around me who kind of assumed it was more of a thing than it already was. So I had to level up to what they were thinking. So I started working hard on that when I got here. Nikhil and I were just, chilling from Hamilton and playing a lot of tennis together over the summer. And he was like, "I want to come." So then he came. So he came. Um, and then we were invited to work on Douglas Week in Cork, the celebration that's coming up. And so then that's how Caroline got me with you. And then you were like, "Oh, they should come up here." And I thought, I could work on my musical. So this all works out good.
And
Yeah.
how is
I lost you, Michael.
I think we've lost Michael there. He's going to come back in a second. But the musical that you're working on, it's one big project which you've been workshopping, and you're going to be workshopping, and there's also songs connected to Douglas and Douglas Week. So for anybody who doesn't know Frederick Douglass, maybe you can just explain.
Can you hear me?
Michael's back now.
Woohoo! Good
He's
stuff.
back.
Sorry about that.
He's back. I have to say that is the one thing that was not made clear to me, and I didn't expect to be doing it, writing this music inspired by, because the thing I'm writing about Frederick and Ireland is an 8-episode limited series for television. And when Nikhil and I were in Docklands in Dublin, we were staying down in Docklands for the first month. He would wake up and start playing guitar, and the walls were kind of thin, and sometimes the guitar would actually be the thing that wafted in and woke me up. And then melodies were coming to me, and I would just walk into the living room and start singing things that were inspired by Frederick, because that's what we were working on. There were post-its all over the walls of all the scenes that I was planning out and writing out. And then I thought, you know what, we need to keep doing this. We could write 3, 4, 5 songs just inspired by the journey and use them for Douglas Week. So that part of it came about unexpectedly.
Yeah, and it's been something that's opened up a lot of opportunity with the collaboration of the festival. And there's Douglas Week participants all over the world, loads in America, and people who are getting involved from all over Ireland. And as we said, University College Cork is kind of taking a lead on the festival. Caroline is playing a blinder. She's incredible, getting all these amazing people involved. And so it looks like there'll be almost like an album of music inspired by Frederick Douglass, and that's very organic. As in, I don't think it was anyone's plan. And Nikhil had an idea and a call. Why don't we just put all these ideas in together? So, we're going to be writing something together as part of the artist in residency, and we're going to be sitting down tomorrow and the day after and next week as well, and getting sort of ideas, playing around with all the different material that you've been doing for your workshop, for your writing on the 8-part series, the TV stuff. And we've been doing our own research as well. So it's coming from a few different places, but it's really, really fascinating, that process and putting it into a song. I think it'll be something pretty special.
And also we have to find time to write our Eurovision hit song, so we'll have to do that too.
And lucky for us, just before I get cut off there, I was going to say, how has it been the inaugural artist in residence? But speaking of Eurovision, the next artist in residence after yourself and Nikhil is Leslie Roy, who's Ireland's Eurovision entry, and she's actually tonight. She'll be using the space to practice and get going and doing some writing. So absolutely, we need to get going with that Eurovision song. But how is it? What's it like being there at the moment? What's the space like?
The space is incredible. The room that I'm in is called the Square, and you guys go in meters. I'm not good at it. You know the dimensions, so you can chime in. But what's here are 2 pianos, some risers, music stands, everything you would need to have unfortunately, you have to think of COVID right now, but it is COVID friendly, spaced out, and all the signs and sanitizers are here. And then in the main house, is it 3 floors, 4 floors?
Yeah, 3 over basement.
Of these bedrooms that are the most, I would live there. I would live here, except it's haunted.
It's 1750. It probably is haunted, and there was a nursing home there.
Definitely haunted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When we were doing it up, I had to live in the place for a little while just to keep it protected from the ghosts.
They're friendly, but they are friendly.
They are friendly. There was a nursing home. They built it where you are right now was a nursing home, and there were literally sheets hanging on the walls and old beds and like creaks and scratches on the walls from the people that were there. So it was definitely haunted.
Yeah, but beautiful kitchen, beautiful living room space. I'm going to be teaching at Harvard, doing a master class online, and just took the prep call in the little living room area because the background painting looks great. There's so many nooks and crannies. The dorm area, we don't have anything to do back there, but it's beautifully appointed. And the offices, it's a great space. Please come, everyone. Please come and avail yourself of this. It reminds me very much of the O'Neill National Music Theater Conference in Connecticut, which is well known in the States. It won the Tony Award for Best Regional Theater about a decade ago, when Clear was there. And it's the kind of work where artists can come up, workshop things, have a little breakfast, create stuff at the breakfast table. That's the best thing about it. I mean, of course, it has all of the modern appointed things that you need. But the best thing about it are these community spaces where you can run into someone who's from somewhere else and start talking about this other thing. And next thing you know, you get your idea. Because I think that real artists, all they need to do is have the space set up. All you need is the ingredients. You need world-class artists. You need people who are eager to collaborate. 1, 2, 3, go. And you provide the space to make it happen. I didn't even mention the amphitheater outside, which is fantastic. Yeah. And
it'll be such a cool process putting together this song commission for Douglas Week and working on it together. I mean, we've played around with a few different things. We've looked at the other songs that you guys wrote, but we're not sure where we're going to go with it. But it's been really cool to just have that process. And I think something that I suppose this year has opened up, and we mentioned it a little bit, is this virtual collaboration, this possibility of collaborating with people from all over the world. And it's funny that you guys came to Ireland and we're actually able to collaborate and able to make this through the artist in resident, make it really, really sort of unique. And I suppose these types of things just come along whenever you're least expecting it. Mm-hmm. But maybe could you tell us a little bit about the writing and the workshopping process of Clear?
Okay, I won't say too much because I think we're going to do a whole thing on it. Yeah. So I'll
say we're gonna delve into it deep and sort of go.
So what I will say is, after the success of Immediate Family, I was on the tail end of the first administration, the first term of the Obamas, and within that first term, we had made a trip to Ghana, where we visited the slave castles in Cape Coast, and I was assigned to be the site lead for those sites. So I didn't just have to be there for the one day that we took the tour. I had to be there for 2 weeks, going in there every day, trying to map out what their path would be. And, just by osmosis, I was learning more things about it than the general tourist would learn walking through it, and developing a personal relationship with the tour guide who had just more and more tidbits to tell me, not only about the slave castle, but about the surrounding community. And, I was already having an awakening just being in Africa, but I was having a deeper awakening about how monumental it is that I'm standing there like the journey had completed, that my ancestors left. 80% of the slave trade came out this one door called the Door of No Return, and 80% of it, when he just pointed for me, to canoes out to the main ship there, and then they would go west across the ocean there. And somehow I had made it back. So I thought to myself, there's something circular there. There's a story there. Stories are circular. And I began investigating my identity as a Black American, and the things I take for granted, and the things that I don't bother to investigate about myself because I just I don't take the time to think about them. And that's the genesis of it. And so I had, from doing Immediate Family, from working in DC and New York for the Obamas, I had enough of a built-in audience that I could get a gig at a jazz club called Joe's Pub in New York City. So I presented it as a song cycle at Joe's Pub. Everybody had their sheet music in front of them on music stands. And between songs, I would just talk a little bit, and then we'd sing the next song, kind of thing. And then some producers were in the audience who said, we think there's an actual show here, on stage. And that's how I began working on it. Got it into several little workshop festivals. It got into the UNEO National Music Theater Conference to work on it. And since being in Hamilton, I've had the great fortune of having Lin-Manuel Miranda look at it. And just 3 days ago, we spoke at the Institute. He wasn't here, guys, for everyone listening.
Yeah.
He didn't fly to Ireland for me. But he had it for a while, and I wasn't too keen on worrying about when he was going to get to it. But he texted me and said, "Hey, I just finished it. Can you talk tonight?" And so right up there in that bedroom, we talked for about an hour and a half, him giving me notes. And I just think everything's meant to be, because where else would I want to be when I'm going to have to take the whole thing and throw it up in the air now and really work on it?
Mm.
I think I was tricking myself into thinking, yeah, I'm going to workshop it here, meaning I'm going to just have some great singers come and we're just going to sing it. So I can sit here and listen to it and say, yeah, that show is good. I was right. Workshop done. But now there's really going to be, there's 2 new songs. There's a lot of stuff cut. There's things moved around. And now there is a necessity that I will be using these wonderful actors and singers that we need a few more, but we've been gathering. And now it really will be workshopping. figuring out how the piece, what the new look of the piece is.
And maybe Dónal, at the end of the podcast, when it's over, we could pick one of the songs if Paul's okay with that, and one of the ones in work in progress played at the end. And so if people want to listen to the future podcast about Clear, which is the one we're doing maybe next week or so, they can get stuck in.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're all works in progress because you got to have your mind open to change, cut, whatever. So yeah, just pick
even
anyone.
for people to see the process.
Yeah.
You know, I think we only ever see the finished process, and people who are interested in this, who mightn't be in this world, this is a great opportunity for them to go, okay, so we tuned in last year and we got to hear what the song was like. You tune in a year later and you go, oh my God, like look at what they've done with it. Or look at what they haven't done with it. It's perfect.
So if you guys are listening to this after February 2021, then you can go straight away and listen to the next one, and it'll be sort of chatting, breaking it down, going into the different scenes, different characters. So there'll be a lot more, and just to get that, it's like lifting up the bonnet and going into the engine and finding out how it works together. So that'll be cool. So that'll be available. Lifting up the bonnet. The car bonnet.
The hood, the bonnet.
The hood.
I love it.
The hood, lifting up the
and
hood.
the other side is the boot.
The boot.
Right, or we say the trunk.
The trunk.
Okay. The bonnet and the...
the bonnet and the boot. Okay, I got it. Bonnet.
The hood trunk.
So once we finish up with the artist in residency, so you're going to have another few weeks here, do Douglas Week, which I know you'll be based mostly in Cork, and then possibly coming back to Balbriggan then to do the workshopping. What's your plan then for the next little while? What's next for Paul?
I'm shooting 2 films. The first one is called Wolf in Waiting, and I'm shooting that with Danilo Carrera. He's a television star from Mexico City, and he's from Ecuador, but he's on the show in Mexico City. And we're going to shoot that in Montana and in Arizona. And then there's a feature length that we'll be shooting. We're going to try to get it in. It looks like Hamilton may start back up at the end of July. We'll see. Fingers crossed that things get better. But if not, we'll just keep working on our feature length film after that. And I'm going to be teaching some classes, as I mentioned, at Harvard online. And I'll be back in Chicago playing tennis.
And before you go, you're also executive producer on something that's coming out very, very soon.
Oh, you mean the film?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it actually just came out in Ireland 2 days ago.
Brilliant. Do you want to let everyone know what it is, what it's about?
Yeah, it's a Swedish film called Are We Lost Forever? And the director and writer is named David Fardmer. And my connection with Sweden is I used to live there. And so I just had met a lot of artists and theater and film types. So over the years, I've stayed in touch with them. And I took a vacation from Hamilton and went to Stockholm to work for Mrs. Obama on her book tour. And I reconnected with some of my artist pals from back in the day. And one of them was like, hey, looking for an executive producer, investor on this short film, or not short film, independent film. It's a full-length film. And I read some of it, I saw a clip and I loved it. And so I invested and consulted. And now it's like selling number one in the UK right now, picked up by Peccadillo Pictures in Germany. I can't believe it. It's
nice
great.
one. Amazing.
Yeah. And so where can people...
Stockholm's also where you got your love of Eurovision, right?
Yes, it is. It is. But people can go to Amazon Prime and rent it there. It's called Are We Lost Forever? Yeah, check it out.
Amazing. Thanks a million, Paul. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to getting deep into Clear. That'll be on the next episode. So it's been a privilege having you here at the Irish Institute of Music and Song. So it'll be a busy few weeks, doing lots of writing, lots of producing videos, loads of stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, you guys. Thanks for having me.